Never a specific day in the week anymore, but if it is after a WWE premium live event or an AEW pay-per-view, it is, of course, Wrestling Night in America. My name is Brandon LeClair. I am your host for this PWTorch post show. We are live on the PWTorch YouTube page as well as Twitch and Facebook, and we are here to talk about WWE Money in the Bank 2025. The show just got over a short while ago. I do realize that this is more of a quick programming note, but I know that Worlds Collide, the combined event between WWE and AAA and NXT, sort of, was also held this afternoon in Los Angeles. For those of you in the chat, I am more than happy for you to talk about that show, bring it up, both in conversation in the chat and here if you're joining us as a video caller, as a VIP member. But just a heads up, I have not seen the show, so we are exclusively covering Money in the Bank as far as my analysis goes and likely my co-host's analysis. He has seen some of the show, so you, again, are more than welcome to talk about Worlds Collide. But a disclaimer, I have not seen that show. So Money in the Bank is the primary topic tonight, and here to discuss that show with me is longtime PWTorch contributor and member Javier Machado. Javier, so glad to have you. Thanks for joining me.
Hey, Brandon, how's it going?
Not too bad.
Been a while, I think, since we've spoken together.
Yeah, I think it has been. I don't even think, maybe not even in the video era.
No, never. It's the first time I've been on video with you.
I think it's just on audio. So that's cool. I'm looking forward to this. Should be a lot of fun. We've got quite a few VIP members in the queue already to join us as video callers. There is still time to get in that queue if you would like. The link is available on my report for PWTorch on the VIP side for Money in the Bank, and I believe it is on Wade Keller's main report as well. If you are in the chat, you are, of course, welcome and able to participate by just sending a message, and we can highlight those here on the screen. Gives us a good jumping off point and discussion points to talk about as we run through this card. Javier, we'll probably break up in between matches here, but I do want to start out with one, and then maybe we'll start bringing some VIP callers in to discuss it and the rest of the show. I figure we can start with the main event and then kind of work our way through chronologically. So let's open things up with the main event. It was, of course, the tag team match between John Cena and Logan Paul, and they faced Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso. It's Cody Rhodes and Jey Uso winning this one. It was quite a lengthy match. They win in about 24 minutes. The finish comes when there is a pretty surprising, I would say, return after only a week away. After a pretty big moonsault that Logan Paul hits to Jey Uso through the announce desk on the outside, Cena is left alone in the ring with Cody Rhodes. He clocks him with the WWE title, and it looks like Cena's going to steal a victory when a hooded, masked figure runs in the ring and tackles Cena, beats him up a little bit, hits him with the title belt. He rips off the hood and the mask to reveal none other than R-Truth. So Truth costs Cena the match. Cody then hits the crossroads and gets the win. And Jey and Cody celebrate as we go off the air. Javier, I'm going to throw to you first here. Talk about the match itself and talk about the was it a swerve to was it a swerve in the sense that was Truth ever officially let go, or do you think that this was a calculated response based on crowd reaction over the last 10 or so days?
Yeah, I go with the latter. That was the first question. As soon as the show wrapped up, the first question people watching the show asked was like, "Hey, was this always a work?" Mm-hmm. No, I think it is a response and a smart one. My commentary during that at the end with the group I was with was this. I wonder how much the spot cost. Yeah. So, but yeah, I mean, as far as the match is concerned, it's pretty much what I expected with the people involved. Cena's not going to do anything spectacular. We had the moments that the moments he needed to hit. One of the takeaways was something that my co-host on Acknowledging WWE brought up, Mike Myers, that he was hoping to see some sort of friction between Logan Paul and Cena, kind of like, because we know Cena's at some point going to turn babyface, so
Right.
so he was hoping to see some of that. We got a little bit of that. So overall, it was what it was, and what it needed to be. So I was neither over nor underwhelmed. I was just whelmed by it. And then the ending, which was Truth coming out and doing what he needed to do. And yeah, I mean, my brother's wife was, she said, "Oh my God, if that's Truth, I'm going to start crying." So she was happy that he got involved there at the end. It made sense considering the fact, although I do have to say that commentary making it seem like it was Truth's idea to leave and not the company, not wanting to pay him money. Truth couldn't agree to our terms, and Truth didn't want to, and Truth didn't, kind of shifting the blame over onto to Truth and away from WWE. I think is kind of a move.
Par for the course.
Yeah. But overall, yeah, it was and I think it was like the crowd went home happy, getting to see Truth getting revenge on John Cena. So, see what if they follow up on that, or if this is just like a one and done with Truth.
Yeah, to Junaid's point in the chat, he's asking why people are surprised that R-Truth returned, especially with Cena acknowledging the chants last night. I didn't read all that much into the chants last night as far as Cena goes, acknowledging them. I feel like we are past the era of WWE just flat out refusing to coyly acknowledge those types of things. I mean, Cena danced around it. It wasn't direct. It was obvious, but it wasn't direct. And so I don't think that was a big clue to the idea that this was coming. As far as his contract not having expired, I'm not privy to the specifics. Javier, do you know for certain the situation? I was under the impression, like you were, that there was an offer that was made, and it was essentially a lowball offer, or an offer that was well below what they had been paying him. But I was unaware of when the contract officially expired, only that they had phased him off television.
Yeah, I don't know. Just pretty much what I've gathered from the various news sites, that it was first it was a lowball offer, but then it became that he was making a lot of money based on compared to what they were doing. And
yeah,
Carlito who was also not renewed, kind of played with that idea, saying that his lawyer told him that he should return the money that he stole from the WWE. Because likely he was paying, getting paid a lot more for just sitting there and playing with the PlayStation. So yeah, from what it looks like, I think Truth, there's some talent. I think Strowman might, we'll probably end up seeing Strowman again at some point. Likely people will just pick up for a couple months, for whatever, they have an idea for them that you don't need to have on contract constantly. I think that might be like what they were going for with the Truth. I think it was just like normal negotiations, but the fact that it was R-Truth, and he was just in a big, a big match with Cena on Saturday, on the Saturday main event, it kind of, it's something that took a life of its own and kind of snowballed. And I think fans are kind of always looking out for that next CM Punk or now we have the Truth chant. So in terms of like what Cena did, as far as what Cena did last night about I think it was just co-opting it. I don't think it was anything to tease this. I think it was more of a co-opting. Because if you put yourself in the shoes of someone who doesn't know about the R-Truth situation, or don't follow the news, you're a more casual fan. Why are the fans chanting, "We want Truth"? And what's going on? By him basically saying, "Oh, they're talking about this aspect of the thing." That made sense that he would try to steal that to reframe what people were chanting for at that point. So I thought it was a ballsy maneuver on Saturday, on Friday. But yeah, I mean, overall, I think that's pretty much what I got for that.
Yeah, it's an interesting situation all around, because you kind of look at the lay of the land, and it's very easy to paint WWE and TKO as the bad guy in the situation. And I don't have a problem with that. I mean, I have no issue with people being upset at a company, a multi-billion-dollar company that is breaking gate after gate after gate after gate, thinking that, oh, they have to release this, or not release, but not renew the contract of this one particular talent because he's making too much money. When in reality, regardless of what money he's making, it's probably a drop in the bucket compared to the profits that they're raking in right now. So I totally get that argument. But on the flip side of the coin, I mean, this was not a scenario where WWE just outwardly released the guy. This was closer to the playbook that we've seen Tony Khan and AEW employ, which is to just let contracts run out and not renew them. I don't think that there is anything inherently wrong with what they did. I just think that the optics of doing it right after you have him in a major storyline where fans are invested is kind of what put themselves in this position. I don't think that we would be seeing nearly the level of outrage had Truth not just worked a major program with Cena. So, I see both sides of the argument, but I'm never going to knock somebody for saying, hey, bad corporation. Because, yes, of course. I mean, like, they could afford another R-Truth contract, but how much more are you going to get out of the guy at this stage of his career is essentially what I'm getting at. I do like your point, though, Javier, in the idea that we might see guys come in for stints, like 1 to 2 month stints for specific angles. And I've always kind of advocated for having people on the roster who you can rotate in and out of TV and in those 1 to 2 month stints. And Braun Strowman is a great example of that. I thought that Strowman, during the era of regular house shows, would be a great attraction for live events. And then when you have a specific angle you want to involve him in on TV, you bring him in for that shot, and then you cycle him back out and bring him out for live events, because he's a known commodity. People are going to be happy to see him in the live event setting, and he's a specimen. It's cool to see him live and in person. But that strategy goes out the window because the house show business is gone.
I mean, yeah. So you'd hire him for a European tour, that kind of thing.
Yeah, or house. You have him on the roster with a guarantee to work a specific number of house shows, live events, where maybe you want to give a specific talent, time off the road, but you have these guys that you can cycle in who are known commodities that fans would still like to see, and you get them out on the road, and then maybe every 5 to 6 months there is a reason to bring them in to TV for a one shot for a particular angle. That idea doesn't work so well anymore, just because, again, like I said, no live events. They're just doing TV now. I wanted to bring up something about the match itself that Derek Hubbard pointed out, and it's something that I mentioned in my report for PWTorch. He said the heat segment on that tag tested my patience and interest, but everything after the hot tag was well laid out and executed. That's where I fell on this match. I thought that WWE has this very specific formula with its tag team matches, especially when they're main event level tag team matches, where they love to do this really, really slow build in the start, where they tease lockups and they trade tags and just the common fodder, and then they always build into this hot tag. And tonight it felt like they just stretched it as far as it could go, and they just beat Jey Uso down for minute after minute after minute and kept teasing the tag. And I thought that on one hand, I thought that there was some intelligence to the move, because to me, it felt like a clear attempt to redirect fan sympathy toward Cody Rhodes, because there was some discontent with him at WrestleMania, some aligning of the fans with John Cena despite him being the heel. Cody has seldomly appeared since Mania. His reactions have been fine since then. But then you saw him come out tonight. He gets the good initial pop, and then during the introductions, he gets the mixed reaction. And Cena gets the massive cheers. So I thought that building to a hot tag for Cody was a good decision, a wise decision to redirect that sort of attention and build to a moment that they knew they'd get a pop for. At the same time, I thought it made the first 10 to 15 minutes of that match unbearably slow. Javier, where do you come down on that?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, I understand it. Just when I start feeling that a match starting to stretch out early on, I'm like, oh, we're going to be here for a while. So at that point, I'm kind of like, relax, sit back, you know. Now, here's the thing, because I don't really know what was going on with the commentary because we were watching with a bunch of people, and when you're watching with a bunch of people, you're not paying attention to the commentary. You're paying attention to your own commentary. So I don't know if they actually hit on this, but it didn't sound like they hit it as much as I would like to. Do not forget that Jey Uso also has a title defense on Monday. So I think that was a big part of that. Is he was beat up. If you watch the little bit that after the show's officially over and they linger and Cody picked up the mic and said a few words and they said they're hey and Jay did his yeet. He walked out of that ring like he was dead. So I think that's all selling and preparing for what's going to go on on Monday. So I think it's a lot of setup for that. But yeah, I mean, it's funny that was mentioned, that was brought up because it wasn't today, but my friend, when we're talking about, he's not a wrestling fan. He only watches the pay-per-views with us, hangs out with us. So he's not like, he doesn't watch Raw or SmackDown or Dynamite or anything. Mm-hmm. He just watches the pay-per-views. He says that he doesn't like WWE tag matches because of the hope spot. Because I told him, hey, well, this is tradition of the way it was done. Because you're getting you're shining up the baby and you want to see the other guy tag out. I give him some of the pointers on how it usually works and why it's done that way. But yeah, I mean, he also brought that up when we were watching today. That here we go. This is the spot where this guy gets beat up for like ever. And I mean, it's formulaic, and it's kind of like, and the thing is that when you're seeing Cena and Cody in a match, you're probably going to get formulaic to some extent. But I thought it was, like I said, I thought it was fine, and it also brought you down from the previous match too. So that's another reason for that to go that way. But yeah, I mean, and like I said, again, it's this for me was like a 3-star match, as just it is. Better than average, but
yeah, these shows have, and I said this in my report too. It's like WWE has sort of gotten in this habit of putting on PLEs where the sum is sort of greater than the parts. There usually aren't a ton of great standout matches, but the atmosphere and the moments that they provide tend to be enough to put you over that edge and walk away feeling like, yeah, I watched a pretty good show. The issue that I think I come back to, and that I think is starting to become more prevalent in their presentation, is that it feels a little soulless to me, and that's in stark contrast to, I think, the way that I felt even just a year ago under Paul Levesque, because I still consider myself I would consider myself a fan of and a strong defender of Paul Levesque's style of booking. I think it's my preferred way to book a wrestling show. But I don't think that he's perfect. And I do think that he has rested on his laurels at times over the last 6 months to a year. And I also think that you're starting to see some of the push and pull that he is working with the higher ups at TKO as they become more involved in this company, and as it becomes more corporatized. And I don't have an issue with laying out sponsors on the mat. That doesn't bother me. It isn't a big deal. It felt like an inevitable conclusion in pro wrestling at some point that we were going to see this. I think what has started to bother me with these shows is the way that they no longer feel like a special event anymore. They feel like an extended episode of television because of the amount of breaks and commercial and sponsorship deals and the video packages if you're on Premium Plus, but if not, you get an ad break. it all feels very sterilized and corporate. And I think that's taking away from some of the my overall enjoyment of the product, even though I tend to think it's still being booked relatively well. Add anything that you want to that, or obviously if you disagree, let me know, and then we'll talk about one more thing with regard to Cena before we move on here and get some callers involved.
Yeah, the level of advertisement, I think that ultimately is objective based on your taste and stuff. For me, what drove it over the edge in this pay-per-view, and yesterday too, because yesterday you had the now that the sponsorship deal with Slim Jim has now extended to putting their logos on the breakable tables, so you can snap into a table. You had the two on this show that like was blatant was the ad on the actual briefcases.
Yeah,
that was obnoxious, and you had an entire segment with the ladder, the red ladder, which was another ad, and that actually factored into the actual match itself. There's a difference between having the logo out there. There's compared to the prop that you're using in the wrestling match is sponsored. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
This letter has been brought to you, and then at that point, we started making fun of that. It's one of the reasons we were not paying commentary. Is like, why not start working your ad reads into your calls at this point? Because it's getting to the point where it does get to be a little bit ridiculous. It gets busy because if there is an art to how you array, colors and stuff, and your eyes get drawn into things. I forgot what was the match. The Lyra Valkyria and Becky one. My eye was more direct. We were trying to figure out what were on the corners because during the slow pods, just because we had something to do. So so it does reach a point where it could be distracting. Again, it's going to be different for everyone. But I agree with you also with this is kind of feeling like, you remember when Hunter got the book the first time, when Vince first retired before he came back, he started doing his own stuff, but then slowly the Vinceism started coming in.
Yeah.
This is feeling the same way without the chaos, of like, we're shifting it. It just feels like it's become more rote, kind of like how people now are saying the Marvel movies are all the same. They're the same. Yep. They're the same template, and that's kind of what's feeling. Everything is kind of feeling more of the same template. Earlier on, you had a lot of like just people crossing crossing and having conversations, and sometimes you would get people who weren't feuding against each other that were locked in other feuds wrestle each other, which prevented you having the messed up finishes you get now. I think there's definitely been, and like maybe there's it's coming from up above, that they want something that's more structured and more like, we want to make sure we know what's, everything's perfect, 3 weeks down the road because we got the sponsor lined up for that week, kind of thing. So, and I think it's making it feel like it's not bad. I don't think the product is bad. It's just been very meh. And what I would really like is to have at least one, if not two matches on these pay-per-views. Granted, if it's a 3-match pay-per-view or 4 or 5 match pay-per-view, you only need one. Where Hunter just goes, okay, try to win match of the year today, and get us something, because we haven't had a really 4 or 5 star attempt at a match. I mean, again, being subjective with the numbers, but we haven't had one of those. Let's try to have the best match of the month. Kind of. It doesn't feel like we've had any of that recently.
I think the 2 triple threats at WrestleMania you could make the case for. I loved both of those matches. The men's main event from night 1 and the women's opener from night 2. But I don't, it's not a scenario where I necessarily feel like not that Levesque is going to say specifically, hey, go have a match of the year candidate. But it didn't feel like it was that type of thing. It just felt like 3 very motivated wrestlers in each of those 2 matches.
Well, it was kind of like the NXT era. That's what I was trying to get to, is like the NXT era. You could everybody was trying to win the night.
Yes. Yep. And that's how AEW books. And I think too much of that can often become problematic.
But that's what like, you know, this is the match that we're going to do that with.
Yeah. All right. Before we hop into some callers here, I want to get your take because as you alluded to at the top of the show, you and I haven't done audio or in a while, and no video together. I'm really curious about your take on the John Cena heel run thus far as a whole, because I've seen a lot of differing opinions on it, and I have my feelings, but I want to throw to you without sort of leading the question one way or another.
It's nice that you asked that, because on the drive home, I finally solidified where I am with this. Because I'm not sure whether I liked it or not. You know, because it's part of the problem with the heel turn is that it was so much involving The Rock during that it just with him, without that being followed up on, it's kind of been hard to really nail it down. In general, I like the concept and what they're running with right now. I don't like the execution. The concept, the way I view it, is that John Cena, if you go back to the promo that he did with Roman Reigns, that he said that, you know, he basically said to something along the lines like, they gave you the ball and I have to keep coming back because, you know, people like you fumble it. So the idea being that he keeps coming back just because the other talent is not the next Cena, is not the guy for the future, right? So that kind of became kind of like the narrative. And then when he wrestles Cody, he accuses Cody. Now, when he accused Roman of that back then, we were all buying into what he was saying. That was like one of my favorite promos of all time, where he buried Roman Reigns. You know, so we were buying into that. But when he tried to do the same thing with Cody, we like Cody, so we weren't buying into that. So it makes sense that now Cena's kind of in for it for himself. So that kind of idea that now he chooses Logan Paul, and now he's like upset. He wants to destroy wrestling by, you know, doing stuff that we would be upset with, killing the lineage. And by the way, I mean, like, you know, hardcore people follow it, killing the lineage of the title. Man, if Logan Paul becomes a champion, that's an embarrassment. That's going to be as bad as David Arquette winning the title. That's going to kill the business. You know, it makes sense. The stuff that he's doing kind of makes sense. Been much better lately, the last couple weeks with Cena. But yeah, I like that concept. I like the idea of fighting for the idea of, like, you know, what does wrestling mean? It feels that a lot of it was undercooked, probably because of politics backstage and stuff like that. Cena, you know, when Cena's not on, he's kind of like, you could tell that he's kind of like, you know, just go on, you know, just give me my script and I'll read it. You know, and he didn't seem engaged. You know, he seems a little bit more engaged with, you know, with the truth and now with the stuff with Logan Paul, a little bit more engaged in that. So I think that's where I'm not against it on principle. I just don't think it was done as well as it could have been, particularly when you're coming off of the great storylines I told with the Bloodline.
Yeah, I'm largely with you. I've been souring on it, I think, progressively as we've gone, and the reason for that is because I thought that the initial follow up was so poor. I was pretty elated with the turn itself. I thought it was well executed. I mean, you know, say what you want about the Travis Scott involvement, but other than that, you know, the involvement with The Rock at the time, because I thought that there was a follow-up coming. And when it became clear that this was not a partnership between The Rock and John Cena, it wasn't John Cena selling his soul to, you know, corporate TKO and The Rock, and rather it very quickly devolved into this sort of John Cena versus the people. And we got a lot of You People promos for the first several weeks of that run. It felt half-baked to me. It felt undercooked and just a little like they rushed into something that they weren't quite prepared to deal with, or it was something that they built up in their heads for so long, and the fans built up in their heads for so long, that when it came time to run with the ball, they just kind of fumbled it a little bit. And I still feel like that is the direction that we're going. possibly because I don't buy Cena in this role. And it's strange to say that because we saw Cena being John Cena on Total Divas, for example, and we saw that he could be kind of an ornery, strange, off-putting guy. And we've seen him play darker, more serious characters in film roles and show roles. He showed range as Peacemaker. I really like his performance in that. But during this heel run so far, it has really felt to me like a guy playing a character that he's not comfortable playing. And I'm just having a hard time getting past that notion. And I hope that I can, but I also don't know how much longer we even have of this, because it feels like they've got to turn him again before too long to get ready for that final run. So I'm torn. I want this to work. I want to like it. I want to like it a lot more than I have. I don't think that the match quality is helping my perception either, because the matches just aren't good. And I don't necessarily buy the notion that fans would turn on him if he were in the babyface role and working these same matches, because I think the fans just have they know what the baseline is for Cena in the ring at this point, and whether he's a babyface or heel, their expectations for what he can and can't do aren't going to change. And so I think at this point, with him getting the babyface reactions almost every night when he comes out, and the dueling chants going back and forth, and like, yeah, they kind of jeer him once in a while, but it feels put on in the same way his character feels put on. And I hope that they can. I hope that there is a shift at some point where I feel differently, where I feel like it finally clicks into place. I just don't know if there's time for that to happen.
Yeah, he feels like when that first happened, I was already mapping out like, oh, come out with a suit and tie, looking like an adult, and, all this other stuff, and he sold his soul to he's the one who sold his soul to The Rock, and now he's surrounded by babes, and kind of being like a total d-bag. That would have worked, but and I was thinking like, man, with this heel turn, there's a lot of story you could tell there. Is he really retiring before the end of the year? Is that just BS? Are we going to be going on for like another 2 years? Because this is exciting. But no, they just basically, he inverted what he says, and that's it. That's all she wrote. That's, and that's kind of what we've been at. And I think they've salvaged, like I said, I think that they've salvaged something with the whole, I'm trying to ruin wrestling. It's cartoonish. It's not it's not the bloodline multi-level, it's still very like, surface level, very but
paper thin.
Yeah. And you're kind of copying that with Seth Rollins, which is also like, I'm going to be, the fate of wrestling. It's melodramatic as hell. I love melodrama, so I'm cool with it. But you kind of, I like that idea of finding, I want to ruin wrestling, and, but at the same time, like, why, if he wants to ruin wrestling, why is Seth Rollins not really talking about it? Maybe we'll find out. There's still a little bit time left for that, but.
The interesting thing too is that I think from a meta perspective, if Cena were the corporate champion, there is an easier story to tell with the notion that he can ruin wrestling, because then you can sort of paint the idea as the board as the bad guy here, even though they're not expressly being shown on television. This idea that Cena is representing them and he's going to take the title and go home with it, whereas the way that it feels to me right now is Cena is straight up addressing the fact that, hey, you know what? Lineage doesn't really matter. WWE's just, if I keep this title past my retirement, WWE's just going to make a new one. And he is trying to sell this idea that the new title won't matter because the lineage follows him. But we have years and years and years of precedence that tells us that WWE does not give a crap about lineage. They'll apply it to whatever belt they want. So if Cena keeps this title through December and goes home with it, the day after, WWE creates a new championship and they will apply the WWE title lineage to that belt, and then Cena's claims are irrelevant.
Well,
So the whole thing just rings hollow.
Well, he did bring that up. He says, yeah, they're just going to make a new title and they're going to say that this is the same title, but we know it's not. So he kind of did like, and yeah, it's ultimately like I'm going to have to take, like modern Hollywood, you got to turn your brain off a little bit and just go with what they're telling you at this point. Because yeah, if you delve too deep, then things start unraveling.
Because you look at a company that is so proud of this historic lineage of their championship. There is no universe in which they allow the lineage to die. It's not going to happen. Like,
I mean, how many times
apply the lineage to the new title?
How many times has the title been split and reunified and split and reunified? Right. How many times has the title gone on a bans?
Right. Yeah, they always maintain that lineage. It's always attached to whatever belt they want you to believe is the top title.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Let's move on from the main event. And we've got 4 other matches to talk about, but I want to get to some of our VIP callers who have been patiently waiting here to join us. Still not too late if you do want to hop on in the queue to join us via video. If you don't want to be on camera, that is totally cool as well. You can join just via audio. Link is the same. It's available in my report at PWTorch.com, and I believe Wade Keller's as well. I'm going to bring on David Miller now, longtime VIP member. And David, what do you got for us?
Hi, Brandon. Hi, Javier. Regarding the Cena heel turn, since you guys are on that subject here, I agree with you, Brandon. The initial execution I loved. The lack of follow-up really hurt. And at this point, it does feel like Cena is playing bad guy wrestler. Like he's just he doesn't seem like a real heel. He seems like he's playing a role. And the people know that his time is going to be up soon. And so they're just playing along with it. It feels like they're just, like you said, they're just playing along with the act and humoring him with his antics here and whatever. I don't know what they're going to do here. It seems like they're painting themselves into a corner because I do not see him ending his career as a heel. But how are they going to turn someone from a baby face to a heel back to a baby face in less than a year? Without the whole thing seeming like just a big sham. I mean, that's what it seems like to me. So that's my take on that. R-Truth, my first thought was, gosh, did we all get worked? Did the whole world just get worked? But it could be another situation like Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns, where they had to backpedal once they announced The Rock was going to take his place, and there was such a backlash they had to backpedal quite a bit. So whatever decision it was, if it was a work, it was brilliant. If it was a case and then backpedaling, then they definitely did the right thing, because you saw the pop and you saw the look on R-Truth's face there. He looks more like, as people have said in the chat, and it was mentioned in the post-show, he looks more like Ron Killings now. Like, he had this serious look on his face. So I'm really looking forward to the follow-up with that. The men's Money in the Bank match. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Just to add to that before you move on from R-Truth, I did see on social media briefly before we came on the air that there is a new T-shirt on WWE Shop, and they're referring to him as Ron Killings. So it looks like that's an actual transition. So it was intentional what they were doing.
I'm looking forward to that then, because I think that has some potential to be really good. The men's Money in the Bank ladder match, I honestly was not too interested in. To me, it was Seth Rollins versus 5 mid-carders. I don't buy any of the rest of them as main event material. We all knew who was going to win that. It was obvious. The extracurricular activities at the end were very interesting. Jacob Fatu finally turning on Solo. That we kind of saw that coming, but that was good. The end, though, like I said, there was no suspense as to who was going to win. Not in my mind. Unlike the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, I thought that either Roxanne Perez, I thought she would have had I think she had a good chance because she's the type of sneaky heel who would be great at cashing in. But I'm okay with Naomi because I really, really love her new character. I love her new direction. And she can definitely milk that Money in the Bank briefcase, I think, for a long time if she wanted to. Becky Lynch versus Lyra, I thought that was a good match. I think we all pretty much expected Becky to win that as well. As far as the overall card, I was going to give it a thumbs in the middle, but the last match and the sponsor. First of all, the sponsorship doesn't bother me at all. Unlike some people, it just I notice it. It doesn't bother me. It is what it is. And the long sell, the long beat down of Jey Uso, I think, as Javier mentioned, I was okay with that only because I was thinking about what Gunther had said about him spreading himself too thin and the fact that he has a match Monday night against Gunther defending the title. So the long beatdown to me made sense. Yes, it could have been probably 3, maybe 4 minutes shorter, but the payoff was really well. I thought the main event, even though John Cena is limited in what he can do in the ring, and Jey Uso, I'm sorry, I still can't buy him as world championship material. I don't know why. It just does not jive with me. It doesn't click with me. But I did think that the main event was well executed. And I think they got the most out of what they could get out of that.
Yeah, I want to, Javier, let's talk a little bit about what David brings up with Jey. Where do you fall on Jey Uso? Another kind of topic you and I haven't been able to discuss. I am of the belief that Jey's having a moment. There's something to be said for the reactions that he gets. I like Jey Uso as a character. I think there's a really, really overwhelming sense of genuineness that kind of oozes from him and a natural charisma. It seems like there's a genuine and really loving appreciation between he and the audience. He just feels like a guy that has become their guy. Like he means something to this crowd, and this crowd means something to him. And I think there's something to be said for putting a world title on him. With that said, it obviously does feel like a secondary title. It has from the very start. And Jey Uso holding the title feels like a pat on the back and a thank you for a job well done, while the company internally acknowledges and sort of, tips their hand a little bit to say, yeah, we're giving this guy a world title run, but the real world champion is over there. It's John Cena and it's Cody Rhodes, and this is the second guy. And I felt like it came off that way in the match tonight. I think that you're both right in the notion that Jey taking the extended beatdown made sense from the perspective of the story they're trying to tell with Gunther and how that's going to end up on Monday. But it did also feel like he was in a very subservient role to both Cody and Cena, and at times Logan Paul. And I thought that was really on display here in that match.
Yeah, I wouldn't worry about him being champion past Monday. I would be very surprised.
Because of Gunther or Seth?
Because of Seth. I would be very surprised if Seth doesn't cash in on him. Because what the storyline they're trying to tell with Seth Rollins and his group is they want absolute power. That's and that's what they're trying to get. And it makes sense that they're put in a position of power and then just have a lot of baby faces go after them. Jey is connecting with the audience. I think there's more for him to be on the chase than anything. You also have the Sami Zayn situation. Like, I could totally see, and I know this is going to fantasy booking levels, but Rollins cashing in on Jey either during the match or after the match. Gunther, and not something well with Gunther, because Gunther is another person who really cares what wrestling is. And hey, winning in by cashing in, that's not what wrestling is. Basically, baby facing him. I can see Jey and Gunther start to team up, which drives a wedge between Jey and Sami Zayn, because it seems like they're laying the groundwork for Zayn to turn heel, and then that pushes Jey over to a feud with Sami Zayn. Away from the title picture, while you have Gunther being someone going after the title against Seth, or then you have just a rotating go through all your baby faces trying to take him down until you get to the point where Breaker turns on Seth, something along those lines. So that's kind of like the broad strokes. I would be surprised that if I would really be surprised if he comes out of Monday after just the beating he's been taking. The conversation he had with Gunther was, seemed like very sagely of what's going to happen. The fact that it feels, he looks frazzled in every single promo he's been cutting. He's been upping, he's been acting very frazzled. I do agree with you in terms that he has what I call silent charisma or subtle charisma. He's not like an in your face, but he's like, hey, this guy seems like someone who's chill and someone I'd like to hang out with. So I'm, and he's connected with the audience and all that. This is what they could have done with Kofi had they not, kneecapped him back in the day. And it's great that they've run him because he's been a hot hand. They've run him. But if you have something you could do better, then yes, I don't think he's going to be like your top guy. I don't think he's, you're going to put him in any program that's going to increase your business. So yeah, I mean, if you have a better idea, then shift off of them.
And I think that you're onto something there with the notion that he's good in the chase. He's good contending for that title and being around the world title picture. And there's also so much that you can do right now with Seth Rollins as champion, more so than you can do with Seth Rollins as Money in the Bank briefcase holder. I think that is purely a stopgap to just get him there and get him there relatively quickly. And then you have a lot of things that you can do. The most obvious being setting him on a collision course with CM Punk at SummerSlam, which seems like an obvious night one or maybe even night two main event, depending on what else they have. I know that Derek Mitchell in the chat noting that the King of the Ring tournament starts on Monday, culminates at Night of Champions in Saudi Arabia at the end of the month. So we're presuming that there's going to be another title shot involved there. To me, it seems like CM Punk's your guy. He's going to be King of the Ring. He's going to face likely Seth at SummerSlam.
Assuming that he goes to Saudi, though.
Yes. Yeah. That is. I am assuming that he will.
The only reason I bring it up is
assumption, but
he was on the art. My understanding is he was on the art, and then people brought that up, and then they removed him from the art. So,
okay. So maybe
that might have been So that might not, because he could get his match not winning King of the Ring, and the King of the Ring could be for the other brand. So there could be like another way that he gets to it. I'm pretty sure that you're right that he's going to be, but I don't think he's going to be the King of the Ring. That might end up being Cody. So you challenge Cena.
That's possible too. Yeah. Okay, David, anything you want to add to that, and then anything else you want to discuss?
Real quick, I'll just agree with Javier 100%. I think that is exactly what they have planned tomorrow night. I agree with you, Brandon. I like Jey's a likable character, and the fans obviously, they're getting off on the whole Yeet thing. He brings the crowd to their feet. He's a crowd pleaser. And he's very popular, but I don't. But he's one of those wrestlers that is better in the chase. He's better in the chase. Once he actually won the title, it's kind of like Wile E. Coyote catching the Roadrunner and saying, "Now what do I do?" Because
there's a bit of that.
There's just it's fallen flat with me. He's usually on the receiving end. He's been saved a lot in the past few weeks. He's been saved a lot during beatdowns in matches, and I absolutely think that Seth is better suited for that role as champion, especially with his new faction he has with Braun Breaker and Bronson Reed, Paul Heyman, and I don't think Jey losing the title will hurt his popularity in the least. It will not damage his character in the least. I think he is just so much better in the chase, and they could do a lot of other things with him. But yeah, Seth with the title on him, that's where it needs to be. So, and of course, when it comes to Naomi winning the Money in the Bank briefcase, I think that should be a slow burn. I believe that Seth should absolutely cash in Monday night, but I see Naomi's Money in the Bank being a slow burn. There's so much they could milk that for a while, but yeah, they kind of need to do this with Seth right now. And I know you got a bunch of other callers on the line, so that's all I've got to say for now. Thank you guys for having me on here.
Yeah, absolutely, David. Thanks for calling in. And David, you're covering NXT, right?
Yes, I missed NXT and Evolve. I do apologize. I missed it this last week because I was in the middle of moving. So, between the moving and all that, I wasn't able to cover it. But next week, I will be covering NXT, and I will also be co-hosting the post-show podcast with Nate Lindberg as the host. So I look forward to seeing you guys on Tuesday night.
Awesome. Thanks so much, David. Make sure to check out his NXT reports as well as that podcast with Nate. And again, thanks, David. PWTorch contributor David Miller. Thank you so much for hanging around with us.
Yep. Have a great night, guys.
You too. All right, Javier. We have got a couple more callers here on the line. Before we get to them, I want to start marching through the card here. We talked a little bit about the opener, the women's Money in the Bank ladder match, but let's dive into that a little bit further. This one opened the show. It was, of course, the annual women's Money in the Bank ladder match. They did the usual thing where during the women's entrances, Cole kind of talks up previous accomplishments of all the women. One of the most notable ones I thought was Naomi, where he said that she was tying the record with Becky Lynch and Natalya for the number of appearances in the ladder match with 5. That, of course, would kind of not spoil, but portend a little bit what was to come, which was her winning for the first time. 3 newcomers in this one: Roxanne Perez, Stephanie Vaquer, and Julia. And 3 veterans, although Rhea Ripley was competing in the first ladder match of her career, which was kind of an interesting factoid that they were harping on a bit. I mentioned the delineation here between the newcomers and the vets because that's kind of how this match started. They kind of split off 3-on-3, and there's a war where Pat McAfee gets to say Young Bucks, which probably popped him internally. The Naomi is the winner of this one in just over 25 minutes. A lot going on here, a lot of talent in this match. I thought most of this was really, really enjoyable, but it did feel a bit disjointed at times, and I think that is par for the course with these ladder matches. We've seen so many of them at this point that it's, number one, really hard to make them memorable beyond just the pop of the moment in the moment. And 2, it's hard not to repeat things that you've done in the past. And finally, there is this desire to make sure that you set up very specific memorable spots. And so to get there, you often have a lot of telegraphed and choreographed pieces of moving furniture or getting wrestlers into place. There's a lot of that here. There was a lot of that in the men's match. But I think that's to be expected with these types of car crash situations at this point. So largely thought this was good. Liked the fact that it was unpredictable. I know a lot of people thought going in that Rhea Ripley was a shoo-in. I did not feel that way. I thought that there were quite a few options, and Naomi was a surprise, but I think a decent choice. I agree with David Miller, who we just had here on the show, who said that she's had some impressive character work, and she is a good candidate to play the long game with the briefcase, with the character that she's playing right now. And opposite of someone like Seth Rollins, who we expect will cash in very quickly, I think that it works for the kind of stories they like to tell with their briefcase holders.
Yeah, I mean, for selfish reasons, I was pulling for either Ripley or Vaquer, because I was just give us 1 year off of the Money in the Bank, please. Just 1 year where you're not teasing cash-ins every week. Just one. That's all I was asking for. Yeah, sure. Just one. Yeah. I was thinking that if Akira wins, she could call her shot at Io Sky at Evolution. So you have your main event there. She's already talked about wanting to wrestle Io Sky. Their match was ruined on the Raw after Mania, and that was probably WWE's best match of the year had it actually had a finish. So I thought that would have been a great use of that. Or Ripley winning it and just immediately cashing in and calling her shot. I'm taking on whoever's champion at Australia. I'm going to win my title back at Australia. That would have been another way to get rid of it. And then assuming that Rollins cashes in on Monday, that's it. No more Money in the Bank for another year. Take a year off. But so if you were not going to do that, Naomi was the most obvious choice. After that, I was just kind of hoping that it wouldn't have happened. I do like her new character. I think that this is the most I've been engaged in her character work. Watching her wrestle again, her wrestling had gotten better, but watching her work on Fridays. I started seeing a lot of light again, a lot of not laying it in there kind of things. So I'm like, I've never been a big fan of hers, but and this also opens the door for them to put that briefcase on the line against Jade and or Bianca, since they're likely going to be involved, the three of them. So that briefcase could have the opportunity to change hands going forward. So we'll see.
It's important to note too that the women still have not had an unsuccessful cash-in. Mm-hmm. So we kind of have to be on the watch for that. It feels like eventually they're going to have to pull that trigger, or it's just going to feel like too much of a guarantee. They overcorrected for a while with the men, and now it's sort of become, I think they've struck a healthy balance with it at this point, but the women has been 100% success rate. So I think that we definitely have to consider a situation like that where, whether it's because of the feud with Jade and Bianca, where one of them costs her the contract or what have you. I'm not saying it's a guarantee, and I also I'm not vehemently opposed to trying a title run with Naomi. I think that the problem at this point is that you're starting to build such an embarrassment of riches of really, really talented women's wrestlers at the top of the card that Naomi is going to feel a little bit out of place if that's the direction that you choose to take. But we'll see. I think that there's some compelling stories they can tell there, and I'm at least intrigued. The only other thing I wanted to touch on in this match in particular before we move on, Javier, was the incredible reaction for Stephanie Vaquer throughout. I mean, from her entrance to her participation in the match, she has gotten herself over. And I mean, there's absolutely credit earned and deserved by Booker T. There's no question about that. but she was, for my money, listening to the reactions tonight, the second most over woman in this match behind Rhea Ripley. And that's saying something for someone who has officially been on the main roster for what, all of 2 weeks?
Yeah, I mean that's why I brought her up, that if they had the stones to do it, she wins and then Evolution wins the title. I mean, she can still be put in the title match in any case. And the idea with her winning the title and then just go for it, because I mean she's the crowd's hot. You build her up as monster, and you have a ready-made star that to add to the Rhea Ripleys and the Becky Lynches and that you have. So yeah, I mean I hope that I hope they don't just just keep her at water level, and she should at the very least be on the same trajectory as what they did with Gunther, because Gunther pretty much won. Got his title reign fairly, early from coming over, so they didn't waste all that much time with him. So I mean, maybe they put her in the Intercontinental, but I definitely push her on that. I didn't really talk about the match, and that's because there wasn't that much to talk about. It felt, for as much as you could make these things safe, it felt safe. I don't know if it's because I'm thinking back. I think there always was one pretty big injury every single women's match. So I'm wondering if they pulled back for that reason. I don't know about last year, but I know before that there's been a lot of injuries. So maybe that might be the so because when the at some point on the night we're like, oh, what happened in the women's match? We kind of didn't remember. So for it being a match, I'm not saying I want these women to kill themselves. At the same time, it wasn't anything as memorable as the Grande Americano spot in the men's match.
Right.
There's nothing that really stood out to me outside of maybe Valkyria doing her. You know the name of that spot? I forgot what it was called.
Devil's Kiss.
Devil's Kiss. Okay. She did it on. I think it was to Ripley on the actual ladder that was
the bridged ladder. Yeah.
Yeah. So outside of that, it kind of felt like it was a good match. It was a fine match. It was just not, what. And part of it is the reason you're saying is we've seen so many of these, and if you keep trying to up the stakes, you're going to have somebody, hardy themselves,
Yeah, for sure. All right, let's jump into the next one. I think we'll cover this one pretty quickly, and then get CJ and Sean involved here. Second match of the night was an impromptu match scheduled earlier in the day during Worlds Collide. Dominic Mysterio with Liv Morgan defending his Intercontinental Championship against Triple A's Octagon Jr. Conan and Vikingo were shown at ringside, among a few others, Mr. Iguana as well, who participated in the show earlier in the afternoon. Dominic Mysterio wins this one in under 5 minutes, 4 minutes and about 53 seconds or so, to retain the Intercontinental Championship. I have to be critical of this because I want to be fair and consistent with the way I treat AEW when it comes to these situations, and I think that the same holds true here. I am not a fan of impromptu title matches on major shows involving wrestlers who are not signed to your company. I understand that WWE owns AAA now. He technically is a WWE employee for all intents and purposes, but he is not a character or wrestler who the audience is exposed to. He has been introduced with nothing other than a brief video package. I don't think it does him many favors. I don't think it does AAA any favors to have their representative lose on a WWE show in less than 5 minutes to someone who is largely considered a joke wrestler in Dominic Mysterio. For all his improvement and overness with the crowd at this point, he's still not generally taken particularly seriously, be it on commentary or otherwise. And I don't think it does anything for Dominic, who continues to get significant babyface reactions despite continuing to be a smarmy heel. I just thought they put Octagon Jr. in a really compromising position here, opposite of a heel who's actually a babyface, and you're asking a crowd who doesn't know who you are to get behind you and get heat on this smarmy heel champion. I don't like when AEW does it. I didn't like this. If I had to choose the formula, I guess I take WWE's side in the sense that, so when AEW does this, it's typically a back and forth 50-50 match that goes anywhere between 10 and 15 minutes. The AEW guy doesn't look very good because he just went 50-50 with a guy from another promotion, and the other guy doesn't particularly look very good because he went 50-50 and he lost anyway. Or maybe they go the other way around and the AEW guy looks really bad. In this instance, they went they went in the opposite direction, where Dominic wins this thing in less than 5 minutes. So you give some credibility to your contracted full-time wrestler, and you really kind of tell the audience that, hey, this guy that we just had our joke champion beat in 5 minutes doesn't really mean anything. I'm just not a fan. I'm not a fan of this style of booking. I didn't think that we'd ever see it cross over to WWE, and we have. But I hope it does not become commonplace.
Yeah, I mostly agree with you. Probably not as emotional as that, but yeah, I mostly agree with it. It didn't look good on Octagon to lose fairly cleanly that way. Because I mean, he's more serious. Dominic's more serious, a better wrestler, but he kind of still needs to cheat to win. This was more like not to what I would. It was as close to a squash as he would get. Considering someone like Octagon, I mean, if you think highly enough of him to put him on a pay-per-view. Now, I understand they wanted to basically add a match to the card because the card was originally short because they didn't want to run in. They couldn't run into the UFC that's happening later. And we have the format, we have extra time. Let's throw a match in there. So I think it's safe that we're not going to be seeing this too often, and this is just like a one-off just because of other situations. But yeah, while this is different for me than the because I didn't have any problem with the Joe Hendry Randy Orton thing, because it's Randy Orton and this guy, and I don't think that harmed anybody in the telling of that as much as him losing the title to Trick Williams did. I
thought that was smart, because I think that Joe Hendry is someone who, one, had appeared on WWE TV before. They put him in the Royal Rumble. They gave him that spot there. He'd appeared on NXT. There is an established working relationship at this point between TNA and WWE. And Hendry feels like a known commodity. It didn't feel like Hendry was going to come out there and have the crowd be like, who the heck is this guy?
No. Yeah. And TNA and TNA here, WWE here. I'm putting my hands apart so people who are listening and not watching. As opposed to they bought AAA, so you expect that this is Mexico's version of WWE. Not doing anybody favors in that. Also, like if you gave Octagon the opportunity, thinking that he's going to be good. And, if you can't tell by his name, Octagon Jr., there is history with him and Pentagon Jr., Penta San Romero. So, and if you can't tell by the fact that they almost wear similar outfits, like you might want to maybe run them into each other. I mean, probably not for years down the line, so people forget about this. But, yeah, I mean, I kind of get it. I'm, and it's not like it wasn't like you had two top guys that you could showcase. It was just essentially bring this guy on and get him beat by Dominic. So yeah, that was like had it been someone like Penta, Rey Fenix, or Dragon Lee, and you have like a lucha match, like a full blown lucha match in this show to get people to watch, Worlds Collide who might not have watched it. Get people to go to YouTube and check out the show. That also could have helped, if you had just a full-blown lucha match there. But, whatever. It is what it is.
Yeah, I mean, this certainly did not feel like a spot where the intent was, hey, we're so proud of the Worlds Collide show we put on earlier today. Please go watch it. It did not. It didn't feel like that at all. Like I said, I guess I side with the idea of the shorter match where the host promotion gets the better of the unknown opponent more than I do the back and forth 50-50 15-minute match with unknown opponent. But I don't think either is good, and I would generally avoid doing it with the rare exception of like you mentioned the Orton and Hendry match, which I thought worked just fine. All right, let's jump to match number 3 on the card, and this is where we'll probably bring CJ in because we know, of course, what he wants to discuss. Lyra Valkyria, the women's Intercontinental champion, taking on Becky Lynch in a rematch from last month's Backlash. It's Becky Lynch winning this one in just over 15 minutes to win the women's Intercontinental title. She does so after reversing a roll-up that Lyra originally executed, and Becky grabs a handful of tights. Camera kind of misses it, and so Cole has to call for a replay afterward so that you can clearly see her pull on the tights, and McAfee and Wade Barrett, of course, say that it was missed and that Becky was strategic and she knew the position that the referee was in and that she could get away with it. So Wade doing some good heel work there. Javier, what'd you think?
Yeah, match kind of lost me with the manhandle slam from the second rope, I think it was, and the immediate pin, immediate kick out. I'm like, there are those kickouts where like, okay, you just made the person superhuman, because if you hit the finisher from a super version of your finisher, and there wasn't, it's fine if there were like a moment where Becky has to gather her thoughts, maybe she'd been beat up and it takes her a while to get to the pin. Then you justify the kick out, but that was just, okay, so now kick out moves don't matter. That's like the move that, and from that point on, the match kind of lost me. And then we ended up with the roll, a replay of the previous win. So that kind of, at that point, once you lost me, it feels contrived that the very next time they fight, it's the exact same spot, except Becky now reverses and then uses the tights. So I mean, it was fine. Overall, it was a fine match. When the two of them get together, it seems like they're, for the most part, having a real fight, and parts of it in the beginning. But overall, I felt it was uneven because there's some good parts, some parts that kind of like stretched. Felt like an uneven match. Didn't like that manhandle slam, super manhandle slam, and didn't like the finish. Kind of at that point felt contrived. At that point, post match.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think that these two have a certain chemistry. It's not like they get in the ring and it's like an instant 4 or 5 star match. But what I like is something you called attention to, which is that they look like they're fighting. I mean, there's a certain level of aggression that these two bring out in each other that I think works really well and plays very well on camera. There's some there's some hard hitting spots, and they're safe, but they're snug. And I think that works to having an aggressive and hard hitting, usually well paced contest. There were a few moments here where I felt like things got a little disjointed. They went to the double the both wrestler down spot like 3 or 4 times in this one, and they started doing it early. The first time that the referee started a double countout was like 4.5 minutes into this match. So they were playing to the idea that like they just go so hard out of the gate that they're exhausted. But to me, it didn't feel earned at that point. At the 4-minute mark or wherever we were, it didn't feel like enough energy had been expended to get to that exhaustion point. And so it kind of felt like they lost the crowd and had to earn them back from that point on.
Was that when we got the "We Want Truth" chant? Because I remember there was one during the match.
That was the second time. So that was, I think, the second of. So they had three different spots where they were both down in the ring. The first one came early. The second one was maybe 5 to 6 minutes later, and that's where we got the "We Want Truth." And then we got the near double count out at the very end, which I disliked that one in particular because I don't like the there's ways to finesse a count out, and it's like, okay, you can slowly get up and sell the idea that you're hurting, or you can be laid out looking like you're unconscious and then just pop up at the count of 9 and slide in the ring. And that's what both of them did. It felt contrived. It just looked too fake for me. But there's a lot to like between these two. And the one thing that stood out to me in particular was in the post match, where I'll preface it by saying it feels to me like Becky Lynch has made it her life's work to get Lyra Valkyria over as a legitimate main event level talent. It feels like she is wholly invested in this cause. And I think that she is doing an admirable job. I think that Lyra is improving and getting more comfortable. I think that it's clear that the company sees big things in Lyra, but understands that she is teetering on an edge right now, where she's the training wheels have been removed and she needs to go prove it with the audience. She's a great wrestler. She needs to get that charisma and that natural connection with the crowd to a place where she feels undeniable. And she's not there yet, but she's closer today than she was 3 or 4 months ago. I would say quite a bit closer. And I thought that it was really smart booking to sort of beat the fans down into this idea that Becky wins the match, and then not only does Becky win, but she's going to force Lyra to hold her hand up and then strap the title around her waist. And that makes Lyra look weak, and it makes it look like Lyra is giving up. So you can hear the reaction from the crowd as she straps the title around around her waist. The crowd is booing, and it feels like they're kind of booing Lyra because she's not standing up for herself. And then the moment she grabs that waist lock to hit the German, the crowd flips in an instant and gives her this big pop. I just thought that that was really, really well executed and kind of helped move Valkyria that one little step further.
Yeah, I don't know if you listened to Knowledge in WWE, but I brought that up with Mike this last show, that I gave Becky her flowers for the work that she's done with Valkyria, mainly more on the promos, because she's been selling like super selling for Valkyria in the promo department. So and then this tonight, I my concern is I knew Becky was going to win. I think it was already in the ether that the plan was for Becky to win, but they didn't want her to win on Backlash because that would hurt Valkyria too much. I think the way they did it today was probably how you could just shoot par with Valkyria and not hurt her. I don't think ultimately it helped her because the fact that she loses the title and the stuff that happened, but the fact that she held par, I don't think she was diminished by this loss. And whether you continue with the feud or not, I don't think it hurts Valkyria. So Valkyria can move on to a program with Perez or Liv or team up with somebody to go after the tag team titles. So I think that they did enough to protect her. Just get rid of those wings, please. For the love of God, get rid of those wings. You don't look like a Valkyrie. You look like a harpy. You don't want to be associated with harpy, with the idea of being a harpy. Please, just get rid of those wings. Put them on your back if you have to. But yeah, that's pretty much it.
Brock in the chat asking, does Lyra win it back or something else? Do you think that there's another chapter for these two? That my read was they've got at least one more, and maybe with a stipulation.
Maybe you go back to it. I'd like to see. I wouldn't be surprised if we end up seeing, because I got to think that Becky and Bayley is a higher priority kind of match, and Bayley still has to come back and get she was taken out by Becky. Mm-hmm. So I'm thinking that that's the feud that's ultimately going to really be between Bayley and Becky. So you could maybe have that feud happen and then go back to Lyra. I don't want another, continuation, because the stipulation of I can't challenge again is kind of saying like, hey, look, it's over. Even if it's doesn't go either way, it's kind of like makes you think that we're not going to go on any further. And I'd like just to see Lyra maybe go do, like I said, do something else with someone else. That's a threat. And then Becky do something else, and then if you could revisit later, because I think 3 months in a row is like too short time to just at that point just feels like you're in a Drew McIntyre program.
All right, you mentioned Bayley, so it's perfect time to bring on CJ to the stage. CJ, let's talk about it a little bit.
I'm laughing because of the icon that CJ is Bayley.
For those that are listening to the audio afterwards on demand, CJ is not on camera with us, and his avatar is a picture of Bayley holding up the championship.
Yeah, this is Bayley, #1 fan. That's awesome.
Yeah, thanks. So you answered my question about Lyra, but I was so sure Bayley was going to come out tonight, and it just didn't freaking happen. So I might be overly paranoid, because I'm starting to think, did she piss Triple H off or something? Like, what the hell?
Well, considering that she gave up her spot in WrestleMania for Becky coming in and, played ball, I don't think so. I think he's probably very happy with her.
Yeah.
And where does she, obviously it looks like Bayley will go with Becky, but I'm just getting worried. She admitted, I assume you guys saw her interview with Chris Van Vliet. She is not totally happy with how she's been used lately. I don't blame her, because even when she was champion last year, it was booked terribly. And then she implied she might leave next year if things don't change. So I'm just worried that if they're going to keep her happy. What do you guys think? Am I being too worried here, or do I have something to worry about?
I think that, because I saw parts of that interview, I didn't see the full thing, but I took it more that I took it more like she's doesn't feel like she's clicking with the character that she's putting out there, and I think that this time off might help with that. I don't know how much of it is she's not feeling the character she's been given, or the character that she's portraying. I don't know exactly where it is, but it felt a little bit more like she's taking some onus for it than just blaming other people, which I respected a lot. No, I mean I'm pretty sure, unless she's really talked into it by Mercedes, who seems to be enjoying the stuff she's doing outside WWE. Outside of that, I'm pretty sure she's going to be in it, because she again, unless she gets unseated by all the women that's coming too. That's the other thing you got to keep in mind. But I wouldn't be so super worried about it. Not right now. Let's see where we're at in a year.
Yeah, Bayley feels like a WWE lifer to me, but the one caveat that I was going to bring up is exactly what you mentioned, Javier. That relationship with Mercedes and the bond that they share, and the way that Mercedes has obviously very clearly tried to recruit her. I think that Bayley is smart enough to know that she would not fit in AEW nearly as well as Mercedes does. And that's not to say I don't think that Bayley couldn't have a successful run in AEW. I do. I do think that she could go over there and have a string of really good matches, and maybe it would reignite something in her. Maybe it would allow her to hone in on some character work and settle into something that she really enjoys. But I would put it as more unlikely than not than that she that she goes there. I think it's far more likely you see her stay with WWE until she's ready to hang it up. And the way that she talked in that interview, she might be closer to that than we think. We just don't know. It's hard to assess the body clock on wrestlers, especially women, because you don't know when or if they're looking to have a family at some point, and that changes their willingness and ability to be in and around the ring full time. I mean, it requires an extensive amount of time off before and after a pregnancy, and then there is, for a lot of them at that point, it becomes a question of how much longer they want to do something like that. So I think that there's always going to be questions as these women's wrestlers from the previous era, as they start to age up and get into the mid to late 30s. I think you are going to see a lot of them start to take considerable steps back, and I don't rule out that happens with Bayley in the next few years, but she feels to me more like a WWE lifer than anything else. CJ, I think that I would take solace in the fact that, like Javier said, Bayley seems to be in a position where she understands that her current character hasn't worked all that well, and that she's partially to blame for that, but that there is also some external factors, that there is also some questionable booking decisions by WWE. I think that it's a reasonable and a mature position to take. I think she has a really good head on her shoulders, and I think that she's gonna come back. You got to be patient, and she's gonna come back and have a big summer program with Becky. I mean, it's always been leading in that direction. I mean, Becky's always been waiting there since she got removed from WrestleMania, and Becky Lynch doesn't do side angles. This is going to be a heavily promoted, heavily featured angle weekly on Raw, and it's going to get high billing at Evolution or one of the night of SummerSlams. One of SummerSlams, whatever.
Oh, back to me. Back to me. Oh, Wade usually says back to you, so I didn't know. Real quick, because I don't think you saw the interview either. There's a few things there. One, she said she wants she wants to stay in WWE. She doesn't want to leave. She wants to wrestle for at least 5 more years, but then she implied that she didn't say it, but she implied if things don't change, she might think about it in a year and a half when her current contract expires. And then she was also said about sometimes getting bad creative and whether sometimes it's better to try and make chicken salad out of chicken poo than to go and complain about it, because then they might punish you, basically, she implied. And then she also talked about how she always asked, am I doing everything right? Yes. Is there anything you could do better? No. Then why haven't I gotten some of the opportunities other people have gotten? She doesn't usually get on the posters. She doesn't get on the interviews. So it's just like she's never, ever gotten all the opportunities that some of the other women have gotten. And she also brought that up. What would you say to that?
I recall her saying those things in the interview. I don't typically take the flippant kind of offhand remarks about contract times and that sort of thing to heart, because things change. I mean, people's opinions change day to day. People's dreams change day to day. their situations at work and at home change day to day. I mean, I just think that, maybe she is steadfast in that belief, and that's exactly what happens. But maybe she's thrown a curveball or two, or maybe she loses passion for it. Any number of things can happen. So I don't put a ton of stock in things that wrestlers say in these interviews, because I'm sure that they believe them in the moment and they're telling the truth. But things always change. I mean, life happens. So I think that I understand her frustration, and it isn't something that we can answer or even speculate about, because wrestlers for decades have had the same complaint. I do all the work, I'm over with the crowd, I have the look, I have the in-ring talent, but I'm not the guy, I'm not the girl. Well, we're not the ones with the pen, so I don't know. I don't know why they don't see that in her. I think that I think that there are women who are better suited for that role on the roster, just being blunt. But I don't think that she is undeserving of that sort of attention. I mean, Javier, where do you land on that?
Well, I mean, a lot of these questions will be answered now when she comes back, because I'm pretty sure I would be surprised if she's not back on the next available show. I could, going back to Lyra, I could see maybe Lyra getting another shot at Becky, something going horribly wrong in the match kind of thing, and then Bayley, coming in to help bail Lyra out, that kind of thing. So then maybe there might be one more. But when I say no more, I meant like no more, real one-on-one against Becky and her. And then that be how she comes back. The thing is that we'll see what kind of Bayley we get back. Is she a different character? Because I don't think babyface homeowner association Karen is going to work, which is what the character's been. So
Karen, what's that? Don't call him Karen. Come on.
Well, I mean, that was as a heel. That was what she was playing, which was great, and it worked awesome.
I thought you made her current character.
Well, her ever since she got turned on by Damage Control, she's kept the same demeanor, and that doesn't work. I'm kind of like, I'm hoping that when she comes back not, obviously you can't go back to NXT Bayley, because that was like an age thing, and like the young girl trying to but like have her come back as she's no longer the young girl, she's the woman, and just more straightforward and more drop the some of the affectations that she's got. I think it's gonna be fun. I'm looking forward to come back, because I want to see if she reinvents herself. If not, then kind of the onus at that point is on her. If she's still playing the same kind of character, then the onus falls on her, and it's a character issue, not because she's never had an in-ring issue. It'll just be that, which is the same problem. That's what killed Mercedes. Mercedes was the same issue as Sasha Banks. She really good in ring, but when it came to character issues, and like her weakest thing in AEW is her character. But but yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to see if the ship gets righted, but. Well, that's what I meant. Like, we'll see where we're at next year this time, because if this flops, if this run flops, then at that point, because she's in there with Becky, and Becky does good promos. So if she can't hang, at that point it becomes on her. But I've got faith in her.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I do too. Yeah, CJ, I hope we talked you off the ledge somewhat. I think that
you helped a little.
I think that it will feel better being a Bayley fan in the next few weeks to a month when she's back on TV and
my Braves suck right now. I can't win.
I can't guarantee that it'll stay that way long term, but at least for this summer, I think that there are good things coming for Bayley.
I hope so. If I have to pick between Braves and Bayley, I pick Bayley. But. They'll always be here. I want Bayley signed a new contract. Thanks.
All right. So yeah, thanks, CJ. As always, we can count on CJ for some fun conversation about Bayley. Javier, we've got one more match to cover, and
well, first we could talk.
go...
We could talk bad about Bayley right now. Now that he's off.
Oh, you want to
just bury her.
All right, let's before we jump into the last match that we've got to cover, I'm going to bring in PWTorch contributor and regular guest on this show, Sean. You've been waiting patiently for quite a while. Glad to have you join us.
Well, as I decide I want to unmute myself, which would be a good thing if you're going to talk on a show like this. You might want to actually turn off the mute button and actually let yourself talk.
You're just doing your Wade Keller impression. That's fine.
I am. And I think he did actually break the streak. I think he did a couple of shows ago. And then he just went. He's like, oh, he laughed. So I got to do a new one. Javier, always fun to talk with you, man. How are you?
Doing good. Hot as hell down here, but yeah.
No, always fun to be on with you guys. I wanted to talk about really quick about the end of the Lyra Becky match. That kind of, it did bother me, but Brandon, you were trying to explain it. I guess so. When Becky's being the heel and she's hold up my hand, and she does, which she kind of had to by the stipulation of the match. You got to hold my hand, but then when Becky did crack me up. She's like, all four sides, got to turn to all four sides. And I was laughing, but then I'm like, okay, Lyra, you don't have to do this. Like, you're the stand-up person. You don't have to do this. You could be like, no, I did my thing. I'm out of here. And so she goes along with it. And then, but to me, that's not a face move just to German Becky just because she's doing something you don't want her to do or she's acting a way you don't want her to act. Like, that to me, even though I like what Lyra's doing, that's a little immature. It's like, okay, you're going to you don't have to go along with what she's doing at this point, and you can go away and leave her alone and sulk about losing or whatever you're going to do. And then just throwing her around is like, okay, that's not really the stand-up way to act, in my opinion. Am I way off base, or what did you think about that? Or is that just crazy and she did what she should have done? And
I think it worked for me because it felt like they were taking the audience on a ride where they were trying to get you to think that Lyra is sort of capitulating to this idea that, well, even though she knows that Becky one-upped her and cheated, she still won. And you can kind of see the doubt on Lyra's face where she's almost kind of thinking like, well, maybe she is better than me. She got one over on me and she is better. And she's kind of going through, she's processing it in real time, and she's got her head down and she's kind of going through the motions of raising her hand. And then when Becky motions for her to put the title around her waist, my read of it was at that point, Lyra knew what she was going to do. She was going to strap the belt and then give her the German suplex. It didn't read to me like a immoral move or a heel move because Becky was being so awful. I think that the way that Becky hammed it up helped make what Lyra did seem okay. That was my read of it.
Well, just put the belt down at her feet. Just lay it down at her feet and move on. Like, you don't have to strap it on her. Like, that's what I'm saying. I guess, yes, Becky was hamming it up. But just because somebody's acting like a jerk to me doesn't mean I can be a jerk to them and just start throwing them around. If I'm a face and I'm a noble face, like she's proclaiming to me.
Well, if you're in a wrestling ring, it does.
Yeah, maybe. But I don't know. It kind of, I looked at it afterwards saying, okay, Lyra's kind of being a jerk. Yeah, Becky's being a jerk. And I just want Lyra, she's supposed to be the noble face in this instance. And I just think the noble person would just walk away, even if you're hamming it up. Because, again, you don't have to be in the ring. You could just, after you hold her hand up, that's it. Just walk away. Like, you don't have to be in there for 45 minutes and do all the stuff that she thinks you do.
I think that where I'd push back there is, So Becky cheated to win first. So
She didn't cheat
deserves
to
some
win. She
kind
did
of.
not grab her tight. She didn't cheat to win. She just held her butt. That's not cheating. That's just holding her butt to leverage a pin.
Well, okay. The story wise, she was. If they slipped up, and probably why you shouldn't show it on the
right. Exactly. Don't
Cole called for the replay, and the replay was still at a pretty tilted angle. But the story is that she cheated. So the pushback that I have there is that if Lyra does what you say, right, and she just puts the title at Becky's feet and walks away, crowd's gonna boo that, because the crowd wants to see Lyra, wants to see Becky get their comeuppance at that point. And I think that if Lyra, who's already kind of this character who's teetering, and they're really trying to give her that edge to get her over with the audience, I think if she doesn't take physical action there, the crowd views her as a pushover and as weak. That's my concern with her not having some physical altercation in the aftermath. Javier, is that your read, or are you where you fall?
Yeah, so if I break it down morality speaking, you that is a way that you could do it, but also executing justice is also a moral framework. So that's what she's doing. She didn't get the extra. Well, granted, she also did the one wing angel thing, whatever her finisher's called. On her, yeah. But she, morality speaking, she could have just left and just left well enough alone. But yeah, at that point, she knew that the crowd wanted justice, and she's a Valkyrie, goddammit, and she's going to dispense her justice for us and make sure that people go home happy. Now, morality is a sliding scale. So if you felt that was vengeance and not justice, we could have that discussion. But I think this falls well within the justice part of the morality spectrum.
Yeah, and I think
we're gonna have to we need to get together one of these days and talk about morality in wrestling and explain how it's not because Tom Martin obviously very often discounts wrestling's not a morality play, but morals are important, because that's our morals would determine whether we like what someone represents or not. So we got to get together and talk about that one of these days.
Yeah, that would be a fun conversation, that's for sure. And so I want to talk about the women's. You were talking about the women's Money in the Bank match, which was fine, and all the stuff you guys talked about. But I did like it because, you said, Brandon, they try to make it memorable every year, and it doesn't have to be. Because number one, a lot of the times, the women have taken crazy risks that they just don't need to take, and they just take a chance. And so I like that they really. There's a couple crazy, little spots here or there, that they did that were fine, but they didn't do anything so crazy where I was worried for someone really seriously getting injured for the women, and that was good for me. I did like it. I'm happy for Naomi in the sense of I think this is good for her character. My only thing is, when if she does cash in and she does win, which they might not do, and you said that they might fail, she might fail, but if she does successfully, whenever that time comes, then it's you have her as a champion. Her in the ring is still an issue, as you said, guys. That's still a big issue. And so that's the only thing I'm worried about with her. I like her character where it is now. She's the heel thing is working for me. I like it a lot. And so I just hope they don't do what they did with Tiffany in the last few Money in the Bank holders for the women. They just, or whoever it was, but they just teased it forever and ever and ever and ever. Like Todd says, it just gets so worn out. And you're like, okay, just cash in the freaking thing and move on. This is
Austin Theory.
Yes. That was the one. That was the really, oh gosh. So they got to worry about that too. But my main question that I was going to ask you guys was going into partly the match on Monday with Jey and Gunther. Because you look at Cena, the heel turn to me just sucked. in every way. I've said that from the very beginning. I said with Wade early on. Cena has been going through the motions for years since he's been on TV, and I was over it to begin with, and I stand by it. I think there's not a lot of, because with Cody on the chase, it's better for him, and I don't think he should win the title right away, right back. I think it should take a little bit of time. But again, you can't wait too long, because what if the fans turn on him, which they have not yet, and I don't think they will for a while, so that's good. And so if Seth goes after Jey and takes the title off of Jey, my question would be, do you think, and I'm not necessarily for it, but I think it could work, have Gunther turn face here in the next few, I guess, month or few months, and build eventually to Gunther winning the title from Cena? Because I think there's not a lot of people other than Cody, because you have Seth, Jey, and all them Punk are all going to be for that title, it looks like. So what do you think they're going for Cena's title? I don't know who else would be in the mix other than the obvious Cody, but other than that, I don't see who would be in that spot. And Gunther could work, but I just don't know if a face turn is where I want to go right now. It's too early. I want to build to it.
Yeah, kind of thinking through that. I mean, we don't know how much longer Cena has in this heel role. So everybody's kind of looking at this and counting down the days. I think it was Derek in the chat earlier mentioned that he's got 20 appearances left on the books.
Yeah.
So that's not 20 matches, that's 20 appearances. So within 20 segments, more or less, give or take, if he does a couple of segments on a show, but 20 or so segments, they need to execute a full turn for Cena back to a babyface and have him set up whatever he's going to do at that final weekend of his career in Boston. So they could pull the trigger on that sooner rather than later. I think that if you run down a list of names that it's reasonable Cena might want to face one more time, you've got CM Punk. That feels like it has to happen. It feels to me like if I'm John Cena, I probably want to work with Seth Rollins. I mean, he's been a top guy in the company for 10 plus years. Cena's worked with him before. They work well together. That seems to me like something, and they have a good relationship outside of wrestling too. Seth talked about that recently. So that seems like something that Cena's probably going to want to do. You can probably throw Roman Reigns in there because it's Roman Reigns. That might be a little bit hard to get on the books because of availability. So there's three guys who I assume they're going to want to run opposite of Cena, whether he's a babyface or heel. Gunther is a fun thing to talk about on paper. I think a lot of us, back when we found out that Cena was going to come back, Sean, you and I probably talked about it on a show or two, the notion of Gunther facing Cena at WrestleMania this past year before what came to be came to be. So I think that's a possibility with maybe with Gunther in the babyface role before they turn Cena. I don't know. I think you're onto something there, and Javier, I think you mentioned it earlier that there's a possibility that they turn Gunther coming out of this situation with Jey tomorrow, if it does in fact lead to Seth cashing in and winning the title. So I think that there's people there. There's a lot of guys at the top of the card right now, and there's a lot of angles that are intersected. I mean, if you look at, and we're going to talk about this in the men's Money in the Bank match, but it feels like virtually the whole main event scene is feuding with Seth Rollins and company right now. And so, does Cena cross paths with them as sort of some existential threat? And then the other guy that I forgot to mention is Logan Paul. I mean, Logan may be the guy that turns Cena. based on
that could happen now. With all the fighting.
I mean, based on the things that happened tonight. Javier, what do you think of that lineup for opponents for Cena, and who am I missing that you think it has a good chance of being one of the few left?
I mean, CM Punk makes sense, but that ship feels like it might have sailed just because it seems he's so tied with Seth right now.
It could, it could.
In trying to get Cena and Rollins together, I was thinking both as champions wrestling each other at Crown Jewel, but that's in October. Mm-hmm. And I think that Cena might end up losing the title and just turning babyface at SummerSlam against Cody. I'm pretty sure I'm pretty sure it's going to be a match with Cody, and then they shake hands at the end, and then that'll be Cena's babyface turn, pretty much. I'm trying to think anybody else. Those would be the three. I mean, Gunther gets something out of it, but I don't. Gunther winning the title over on SmackDown. I think the story's just set for Cody to win the title back. So I think Gunther might end up being a foil for Seth Rollins as in the babyface role, just because Seth Rollins wants to control the future of wrestling, and Gunther disagrees with that future is. So because he relies too much on shenanigans. Not that Gunther ever did. But hey, we'll forget it. That's in the past. We'll forget about that.
Well, the only thing
feels like a lot of.
Yeah, go
ahead.
No, I was going to make a stupid joke.
I was going to say, Brandon. So the thing is, if Cody does win the title back, which I'm not for, but I'm not against it. I mean, if they play it right, I mean, I'm okay, I guess. And then you have, if Drew does, if he's okay at that point and comes back at that point, and then you start the Drew Cody stuff, which would be fantastic. Like, I'd be totally into that. Because Gunther and Seth would be a fun feud. If they do go that route and turn Gunther, at least that's a good guy to him to play off of and have great promo stuff with and building into that. So, but what are you thinking, Brandon? What do you think about that?
Yeah, I mean, I think everything everyone mentioned is reasonable. Like when you really start to break it down and think about the guys that he hasn't faced yet, who he has history with, or who he might want to work with, I think the list is pretty solid, and it's more about figuring out where they all fit in and what with limited dates, how they get those matches to work. I think that they're going to have to do a lot of there's going to have to be some express lane booking with some of this. And so if they want it to land, they're going to have to be really wise with their time, with the time that they have Cena, and they're going to have to get a lot done in these segments. And I don't have a ton of hope that they do that, because I don't think they've done it well with him up to this point as a heel. And maybe it gets easier when he's back in the babyface role. I mean, maybe that just gets significantly easier. Brock saying in the chat, time is not on their side. That's absolutely right. It's not. They're quickly running low on appearances with what feels like still a lot to accomplish. The other piece to this situation that we haven't necessarily touched on yet is that it does feel like Cena is having some say in who he's working with. And I have to think that creatively, WWE is allowing him a lot of grace and a lot of leeway to pick and choose his opponents because of who he is and what this final run means to him. So in the last couple of weeks, we've learned that R-Truth was virtually hand chosen by Cena because he was aware of Truth's incoming contract expiration and the decision to not re-sign him, or contract dispute, whatever the case may be. Cena was aware that Truth's contract was coming to an end. He was not coming back. And so Cena pushed to work with Truth specifically. So if that's the case, we know that Cena does have some pull in the ability to dictate who he's working with. So when I go through the list, I'm trying to think of guys who we know Cena has a good relationship with in and out of the ring, and assume that those are the guys that he's going to want to run his career down with. So that's why I think of the CM Punks and the Seth Rollins, for example. We know there's a ton of mutual respect there on both sides. Roman Reigns, I don't know. I don't know what Cena thinks of Reigns. But those are two guys that stand out to me. And then it would just become a matter of who does Cena see on the come up, who he thinks is worthy of a spot like that. Could we be talking about somebody like Jacob Fatu?
Right. I was just going to bring that up.
Benefits from a major spot with Cena. I don't know. I mean, that if I'm Cena, I'm looking up and down this roster and being like, man, I want to get in there with Fatu.
Yep. Yeah, I didn't because I mean the stuff with him and Solo, was going to happen. It was imminent, but I really didn't think Fatu needed the U.S. title either, which kind of bugs me. He's got just such a mid-card title. It just doesn't feel like he needs it. There's so much he could be doing. Because obviously you're going to build up to him and Braun down the line, like way down the line. I mean, they tease that. It's going to happen. But him winning the title, I mean, the fans would be totally into it. But King of the Ring is obviously, we'll see on Raw what the matchups for the four-ways are going to be for that. And, obviously we'll kind of know when we see those matches play out. We'll have a better idea of who's going to be in that role. But the Jay Gunther just seems obvious that Seth's going to cash in, and that's fine. I mean, we know. And like I said, I was with you, or Brandon, I was going to disagree a little bit, I guess. I see what you're saying with Dom and him just beating Octagon right away. I mean, I see what you're saying. I guess it didn't bother me only because he came in. Most people don't know who he was unless you, like I said, unless you watch Worlds Collide earlier in the day. And Dom needs to just try to get more heat, and that kind of got some heat tonight. I mean, it was, and Dom is just, he's getting better in the ring every time, and I think there's just something there with him and Octagon. I mean, there's they're going to use him in a limited kind of here role. I mean, I don't think it hurts him to where if he's on TV a lot and just starts losing all the time, then yeah, it's an issue. But if he just loses this one match, for a couple of minutes, I don't think it ultimately hurts him. I just think it helps Dom go where they're ultimately wanting him to go and just kind of build and him and Liv just were so good tonight that I just think it worked. But I see what you're saying. I wouldn't do it all the time either.
Well, my question with Octagon is more: are we ever going to see him again, or is he going to go back to AAA? I mean, was this a one-off, or was this an attempt to officially migrate him to the WWE roster? I didn't read it that way.
I didn't either.
But maybe they're opening the door to more of that sort of the way that AEW works, where wrestlers can float in and out. I mean, Javier, how do you see that playing out?
Well, I'm thinking that he's because my understanding they've had agents down there, so they know who they like and who they don't. And so I'm my guess is that they put him in this position as a tryout to see how hard they want to go with him. Again, the connection with Pentagon is something to be dismissed easily. I mean, more easily, less easily if we're like AEW or New Japan, but there's still something there. Yeah, I mean, ultimately, like if I were to tell you, oh, this guy Octagon was on the YouTube, he had a match on the YouTube thing. The way that the match evolved, would you be more interested or less interested to go see Octagon on that show? And I'd say that you're probably less interested because Dominic, a guy who's not, he's in the story on the story level, needs to cheat to win because he can't hang with the big guys. He's not going to hang with the Gunther or anything. So he's definitely not like he's punching above his weight because of the cheating basically. This guy just, schooled this guy. Are you more interested in watching that YouTube show now, or are you less interested in watching that YouTube show? That's kind of just where I'm landing on that, whether it was a good idea or a bad idea. Ultimately, I think like we're talking about such a small number of fans that would actually do that ultimately, in reality, doesn't matter. But it is something to consider. You're not like painting AAA in like the best light with that match.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Brock mentioned that.
Yeah.
Sean, I just wanted to mention Brock mentioning that they should take advantage of the reaction that Mr. Iguana got, and I mean, there's something to be said for that. I mean, if you're paying attention to organic audience reactions, I mean, there you go.
I did catch. I didn't see the whole thing, but I did catch Lince Dorado hitting the puppet iguana with a Spanish fly, and that was hilarious. So, but yeah,
yeah. Oh, I do want to say one thing too. I mean, I'm with you. I thought I wouldn't have put the briefcase on Rhea. Like, she just doesn't need it. I mean, she's a star. She doesn't need a briefcase so I was like, that's not going to happen. And Valkyria, I mean, she's just so over. She doesn't need it either. She's so over. But one thing I will say is, I do like
Javier's nihilist approach of just putting it on Valkyria solely to burn it off immediately. Just kill the briefcases.
It was good. No, if you're gonna put it on her for that, yes, I would agree. That's what you would do. But I was just like, I know she's not gonna win because I just don't. They know how over she is. She doesn't need it right now. But the Devil's Kiss. Okay, so Charlotte does this move a lot. Okay, we've seen this over and over and over. I know people love it. I mean, I don't hate it, but I wouldn't do it every match. I just think it's kind of getting a little overdone. And again, it's her. They love it. They're into it, and I'm into her as a character. I don't need that every single time she's in the ring in a match. I don't need it every time. WWE does go to the tropes of having the wrestlers do these certain moves every match, and I get it to an extent, but it gets a little overdone.
It got over. It's not going anywhere.
And it's just like, her bashing with her legs, her head into the mat. It's just like, I don't know. It doesn't do anything for me, but it is what it is. I get it. So.
It's kind of like the Sonata's Paradise Lock in New Japan. I don't know if he still does it because it's been a while since I watched it, but it's the same thing. It's like he does it in every match. It's like, come on, what are the chances that you're going to be in the right position? Worse yet is that I think it's Del Rio's when he was in WWE, his finisher, where you have the guy upside down and then like he does a sit up and then you do the stomp as he's doing the sit up.
Yes.
Oh my God! When that happens in every single match, I'm like, what are the odds, bro?
What are they? Is the Paradise Lock, Javier, the one where the Serena Deebs does in AEW, where she did it in like no, that was something else. What was that called? That she did we couldn't stand that she did the thing where you held your hands behind your back or something for a minute and you just sat there.
They kind of lock your wrists and cross your ankles, so you're like locked, between your ankles. So if you didn't have the ability to actually shift to the side, which almost every human being has, you wouldn't be able to get out of it. But apparently no one's figured out that you could just go and slide to the side and fall over, and you're no longer trapped by your own legs. That's the Paradise Lock.
Wow. Okay. Well. Oh man. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, let's Sean, I'm gonna keep you on here for our last match. We'll get through the last one here, which is the men's Money in the Bank. I want to wrap that up here. So let's get into it. We talked a little bit about Seth obviously coming out the winner, but let's get into the minutia of the match itself. Seth Rollins winning the men's Money in the Bank ladder match. This one was long. They went 33 minutes 46 seconds by my count. So on the longer side for these Money in the Bank ladder matches for sure. Big story of this one, of course, was the breakdown toward the end of the match where we got significant interference, which I think we all knew was coming. The question was just who was it going to be? Because Seth is involved with so many people right now. It could have been, CM Punk. It could have been the Solos group, Jacob Fatu and JC Mateo. I think that name's terrible, by the way. I think it was. I give WWE some credit for practicing some restraint in not throwing everything at the wall. I was half expecting, after the bloodline situation resolved itself and Fatu returned to the back, that Seth was going to climb the ladder and then Cult of Personality was going to hit and Punk was going to come out and we were going to do that whole thing. And as much as the crowd wanted to see CM Punk, I applaud WWE for not taking that extra step and just heaping interference on top of interference, because what that does is completely pull you out of the moment, because you've got 5 other guys in this match who just have to play dead on the outside. And they already had to do it for an extended period of time because of the bloodline drama. So to not extend that, I thought was a smart move. And the stuff that the crowd did get, the Fatu turn, and then later on in the night, R-Truth coming back, made sure that they weren't going to leave with a negative taste in their mouth because they didn't get CM Punk. So I thought that was smart booking. Punk will get his. He'll be back, tomorrow or Monday or whenever. So I thought that worked. I thought the match itself was, again, largely fine, built around some significant key spots that were memorable in the moment, but that 2 weeks from now we'll forget happened, like we do with most of these matches. I think the key takeaway here that people are going to remember is the star-making moment for Jacob Fatu. And again, the tease of, Sean, you alluded to this earlier, the stare down between Fatu and Braun Breaker for the first time last week or whenever it was that it happened. That to me felt like the modern day Batista Randy Orton stare down, where you have these 2 guys who the company is fully invested in them. They are going to be main event players, barring, some freak accident or issue or out of the ring problem. These are guys that you're going to rely on for the next 5, 10, however many years. So I thought, teasing that again tonight was a good idea. It felt to me that there was a very clear indication that Jeff Cobb or JC Mateo is essentially a stand-in for Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa right now. He's just there to get beat up. They don't appear to see anything of significance in him. He looks like a body out there. He's just a guy to have by Solo Sikoa. Maybe that changes. It's a little surprising to me given what it sounds like they paid to bring Jeff Cobb in, but right now it feels like he is a body. Javier, thoughts on the match? Thoughts on Mateo, the bloodline angle? Anything you want?
Yeah, at first I wasn't that big a fan of JC Mateo, but then I realized Mateo is a portmanteau of Matanzas Cueto, which was his name in Lucha Underground. So I'm like, okay, they're honoring both Jeff Cobb with the JC and the Matanzas Cueto with the. So I'm like, okay. I agree that he's a body, but not just a body though. I think he's essentially gonna be the same thing that Bronson Reed is with the Seth Rollins group. So and I think that's fine. He's not going to be the one that's going to come out of that group as the star. That's already Jacob Fatu already accelerated on that today.
I would argue they see more in Reed than they do Mateo. At least my read.
Well, it's still too early for Mateo because Mateo's had some spots. Obviously, of the 2, Fatu was the one that Fatu and Breaker were the ones standing against each other, while it would have been Cobb and Reed against each other. I do think he needs to sing for his supper. Let's put it that way. if they want him to, like how Bronson Reed did, because Bronson Reed was criminally underused. So I'm thinking that Cobb might have to have the same kind of fight on his hands with creative. But as far as the match, the match spot that I think is going to stay with me for a bit is the Grande Americano running up the ladder on the outside and into the other one that was set, and that was cool. And a memorable spot that I'd remember. I agree with you because I was expecting CM Punk's music to hit when Rollins was trying to unlock the thing. I was expecting his music to hit. I'm like, are they gonna do that thing where his music gonna hit and then he's gonna look and not take the stupid briefcase down? I was ready for that. Again, glad that didn't happen. Man, the Fatu, holding Sikoa down and then just milking that moment, knowing that this guy was going to get just destroyed by Fatu, and sure enough, comeuppance. This was the most memorable match of the night. My group agreed with me on that. I think this was the most memorable match, and yeah, I thought it was overall the only the biggest worthwhile talking point out of this. And it makes sense. Seth Rollins wins. Makes sense for him to cash in because it's weird. It almost feels like AEW and WWE have been copying each other's storylines because this feels like the same kind of story that they're telling with Moxley, which is funny because it's Seth Rollins. Both of them trying to control what wrestling means in their organizations. Both using the belt to do it. Both having a group of heavies around him to help him do it. Lot of copying. It feels like a lot of copying going on.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, it just everything in this made sense. So I'm fine, and Monday's going to be an interesting show.
Jeremy in the chat mentioning I wanted to bring this up too. Solo's comedy, nice change of pace in the match. I was intrigued by that. It took me back to seeing Luke Harper at house shows back in the day. He would completely break character and just start doing like bodybuilding poses in the middle of matches. And this was during the Wyatt family. Like he was just having fun out there. And the Solo stuff tonight kind of reminded me of that. He was sliding into a character. He was showing a little bit more charisma than I think we have seen from him in a while. The stealing the Penta taunts I thought was fun. Him slipping in there at the start of the match to be the one to toss Rollins out of the ring and then pretend that he was part of the babyface clan, only to get thwarted and kicked in the face by Penta. I thought that was a nice touch. Solo's a guy who obviously they are starting to see his ceiling and his limitation, and clearly Fatu very quickly overtook him in the hierarchy of that group. And I think that anybody can see very easily that that's the right move. But Solo still has something to contribute, and if he can hone in on this character, this kind of smarmy heel who steals taunts and kind of mocks the wrestlers that he's facing, I think that might be a good position for him. Sean, I'll let you add to that if you want, and then anything you want to talk about this match in general.
Yeah, I mean, I thought Solo was definitely funny in his role, but again, when you're hovering over Penta and the ladder's right there in front of you, and you just stand there and you don't go get the briefcase, like that's the whole point of and that's why I'm with Wade on a lot of that stuff. It's like that's the part of the match that just bothers me. Like you're worried about that, but you should be worried about winning the briefcase, and they just stand there and they don't get up and so that's the thing about Penta had that moment, like he was just standing there. And it's like, dude, get the briefcase. Like, what are you doing? And why are you watching El Grande Americano jump from ladder to ladder when you're right on top of the freaking ladder? Just get the briefcase. Yeah. Like, it's just, it looks so, it takes you out of the moment when you're like looking at that. And you're like, yeah, that's a cool move. But in the retrospect, that should be happening. And so that actually annoyed me more than made me laugh because I'm just like, this is stupid. And, ugh.
Sean, the worst example of that, where it was so bad that commentary actually had to call it out. Penta and Andrade were on the top of the ladder, and Andrade actually like baited Penta into doing the Zero Miedo taunt so that he could catch him with a punch to the gut to knock him off the ladder. And it was so blatant that commentary had to call it out because they couldn't cover it up. So I thought that was interesting. That's a thing with Penta. I mean, you're gonna get those kind of spots like. He's got to do the taunt, and he's cool and he's over, but I wish that he would have I wish that he would have the ability to self-edit a little bit more than he does.
And they said also what was so funny to me was you had the main ladders that were all already in the ring, the one tall one that they had to start off with, and they brought the stupid fireball ladder in, like, really, we got to get this thing for fireball, whatever. Like, that's what it is. But then, like, it was the same height. They were like, oh, this is, like, way bigger. I'm like, it's the same height. It's, like, the same point. Like, I mean, it might have been slightly, like, maybe that much bigger. but it wasn't like that much bigger than the other one. They were making a big deal about it. I just thought that was funny. Did you guys catch that?
Well, it was a step bigger, but yeah, it was just like like a foot, just a little bit. But yeah, it was when they brought out the small ones. I'm like,
yeah,
when they used to bring out the small ones was because they went underneath the ring and wasn't one of the official ladders that they were using in the match. And now it seems like there are like 4 of them, and I'm like, what is the point of this? You can't reach the stupid the stupid briefcase. And then the medium, they bring out the medium ladders, and I'm like, in particular the women's match, they bring out the medium ladder, and Bliss is climbing, and I'm like, Bliss is not going to reach it in the medium ladder. She's going to need the super one. Yeah, and I don't know if you noticed that they destroyed the first Fireball ladder. I'm guessing they had a spare. It's just that they had to use it again. But yeah, my brother's wife was complaining about the people climbing so slowly. Like, climb faster. It's like one of those things, like reaching. There's the slow reach up, and like you're on the first rung and you're already reaching up. That kind of stuff is just dumb.
These matches require a extended amount of suspension of disbelief. Let's put it that way.
Yeah, I mean, if you're just doing a ladder match with 2 people, because that's the problem, you're dealing with 4 or 5 other people in the match that you got to be, aware of. So, and you have to, take account of. But like when you have 2 people, you better hide that kind of stuff. With that many people, it's just like, I can't reach. Look, I got little small stubby, T-Rex hands,
Yeah. But the Destroyer on Andrade was sweet. Oh my gosh, that did look freaking awesome. That scared me. I would not want to do it, but good for you, Andrade, to take that and then to fall straight down on your head, afterwards. That was cool. Everybody had their good moments in the match, which I did like. And I think LA Knight, somebody was saying, is he a main event guy? No, he's not. But he's good in his role. He's doing really well for what WWE's asking him to do. Yeah. And I think I heard somebody bring up him and Alistair maybe being a tag team. I'd be all for that. I'd actually be all for that because now granted, are we going to build tag teams up? Probably not, because we're wrestling now, and tag teams in both companies are just awful right now. But I think if you could do that, it'd be something good for both of them to do. If they're just going to be in the mid card, like have them be a tag team, have them do something different. Like I'd be all for it.
I think LA Knight is this goes back to an earlier thing we're talking about. I think LA Knight and Jey Uso are kind of on the same rung on the ladder, where they're people who are over enough with the crowd that in case of emergencies or if everything lines up right, you could give them the title. Things did not line up for LA Knight because he was going up at the time against Roman Reigns, and it worked out with Jey because you had a good matchup with the heel in Gunther that he was facing, and they had already told that same story. Jey's story was the same one that Sami Zayn had with Gunther, so it was just like a repeat of that, but like at a higher level. So, but that's the thing. I think they're both like they could win it. They're like top of the second tier, like just kissing the first tier. I think that's where those guys are. So,
yeah, I think that's a pretty astute comparison. I think that what stands as we bring this thing to a close here, what stands out to me most about this show as a whole is the idea that I think a lot of people came into the night thinking that there was a good chance that tonight was, not a return, but an appearance by CM Punk, a return for Roman Reigns, possibly a Money in the Bank cash-in, because historically they have burned one of the contracts the night of, or at least teased it. And they delivered none of that. Instead, they delivered a Jacob Fatu turn on Solo Sikoa and a return for R-Truth. And the crowd went home happy. Mm-hmm. And I think that speaks to the level of goodwill that they have established with the fan base right now. And maybe it's the people who are willing to spend the money to sit in these arenas, not having as high of expectation for the quality of product. But right now, they are churning out consistently satisfied customers. And there's something to be said for that. For every comment I make at the top of the show about it starting to feel a little soulless at times. They have cultivated an audience that is largely there with them for whatever they want to do, and tonight was a continuation of that. Javier, any final thoughts you wanna throw out there before we wind this thing down?
Well, on the topic you're talking about, the soullessness, I think it's the more I'm on my phone eating popcorn and only look up at the screen every few moments. It's kind of that crowd from the people I know in Hollywood. A lot of movies and particularly a lot of TV shows are built around that idea that they're expecting people to be on their phones, so they can't trust people to see what's happening on the screen. So you need to have the person repeat what's happening on the screen because because they're not going to be paying attention, or they'll watch only 15 minutes, so they have to repeat the same thing over and over, and it just makes for a horrible viewing experience. But there's some people who don't, who are like too busy, not as engaged. And I guess that might be, and also spending a lot of money is going to make you like the product more because, you're going to force yourself to like it if you spend that kind of money. That also goes into it. Not to say that I don't think the product is bad. It's okay. It's there. It's mid, I guess, as the kids would say.
Sean, anything you want to add before I let you go and do some plugs here?
Yeah, just real quick. I mean, I definitely thought it was a thumbs up show. I thought they did a really nice job overall. Everything kind of
overall.
I mean, I thought the venue was really cool, and I thought the shots were really cool at the beginning of the show. Yeah. I mean, the drones I could do without, but just the camera shots going up and the seating of it was really, really cool. I liked the way they shot it, the way they lit it up, and so that was fun. And yeah, I just enjoyed the show, and I'm willing to see what they do on Monday. It should be a fun Raw. So thanks, guys, for having me on. Go one.
The note on the drones, Sean, I'm with you there. I think that I think the notion of them adds something to the product, and I understand why they do it. But I think that until they're able to get the camera quality up on the drone cams, it's going to feel a little jarring and out of place. Like there is such a disparity between the TV cams that they use and the cameras that are attached to the drones for obvious reasons, that it feels a little jarring when they cut to that, especially when they use it for an extended period of time and not just a couple seconds. Yeah.
So go VIP, guys, and thanks for having me on.
Yeah. Thanks, Sean. Always good to have you for sure. Let's to Sean's point. Let's go ahead and get a couple of VIP plugs in here. If you haven't already, it's a great time to become a PWTorch VIP member at pwtorch.com/go-VIP. You get a whole bunch of stuff. If you're with us live on YouTube or Facebook or Twitch, you can see it on the screen there. Ad-free podcasts, VIP-only podcasts, 35 years of podcasts and newsletter archives. You get a weekly PDF newsletter. Tons and tons and tons and tons of back issues all the way back to the 1980s when Wade Keller first started the site. You get, of course, the ad-free version of pwtorch.com. One of the cool little benefits to plug my own thing here is that you get to participate as a live video or audio caller on these post shows. And we thank all of our callers tonight so much. Sean, of course, who's a regular friend and guest of the show. Greg Miller, a PWTorch contributor for NXT. And resident daily superfan CJ as well. Certainly glad to have all of them. And then there's all the podcasts that you get with a VIP membership, including The Fix with Todd Martin, the Wade Keller Hotline, and everything with Rich Fan and Wade Keller. You also, of course, get the post-event roundtable podcasts, which Wade and company were recording when we started this show. So that'll be up and available for you by the time you hear this, or even right now, if you want to if you're listening to us now and you want to hear what Wade and the crew thought, that'll be available for you on demand when we sign off here. Javier, want to give you a quick chance to shout out what you do for the Torch.
I do the Acknowledging WWE podcast with the rotating co-host, and I do the primers for the WWE PLEs. So check those out. Those I write with. I'll plug this one a little bit harder. I write those for essentially my best friend who I mentioned earlier, who only follows it like lightly so that he knows what's going on. So I try to just, keep in, I have a little thing that's a story in a nutshell. So like one sentence off and run on that I use that, hey, look, this is what's going on in the story, the important stuff. So he knows what's going on.
Cool. It was really great to have you, Javier. I hope we can do this again for sure. Want to do a quick programming note for me before we sign off. I will be back for these post shows next for AEW All In. So I will not be hosting Wrestling Night in America for the upcoming Saudi show. I assume that Wade will look to have a replacement co-host for me for that event, but I will be off the grid celebrating my my best friend's bachelor party that weekend. So no Saudi show for me this June. So keep in tune to the PWTorch socials. I'm sure Wade will put up some information as to whether or not there will be a Wrestling Night in America following the upcoming Saudi show and who will be hosting that. But I will be back for AEW All in Texas in the second week of July. For Javier, thanks so much to all of our VIP members and for all of you in the chat. Had a lot of fun. And until next time, this has been Wrestling Night